Elana Freeland is a very seasoned author and researcher into the deep state, other issues like MK Ultra, the invasive electromagnetic weapons, and she's most well known for her book Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, which was published in 2014. She has recently released her book Geoengineered Transhumanism, How the Environment Has Been Weaponized by Chemicals, Electromagnetics, and Nanotechnology for Synthetic Biology. And just in case you are over in the States watching this, you can actually catch Elana Freeland currently on her book tour. She will be this weekend in Oregon, then she'll be off to California, Arizona, and New Mexico. So hopefully our American audience will check her out, elanafreeland.com. And of course, all of you over here in New Zealand can go onto her website, elanafreeland.com, and purchase any of her books. She is a very prolific author, and she had a real depth to her, didn't she, Calvin, in terms of her deep state knowledge and also an esoteric spiritual knowledge coming through.
Yeah, she did. And she, like everyone else, is talking about take nothing in isolation. It is all part of a plan. Your geoengineering, the medical tyranny that Hannah just mentioned, the 5G towers, everything plays a part in the construction of this prison that's been built up around you, yet they're telling you it's not there.
So this is not a 5 or 10 minute soundbite. I think the interview ended up being about 80 minutes. So it's a real meaty piece, and it may be something that you go back to a few times.
Well worth a watch.
Yeah, and you can also check her out on The Dark Journalist. So Calvin, what do you reckon?
I think we should look at that right after we say, if you like what we're doing and you want to help us battle the deep state and all their little compliant media minions and help us counterspin them back on their ear, then go to counterspinmedia.com, hit the donate button, and let's get this job done. And
I do have to add, you've just reminded me, because we're playing the Vaxxed 2 documentary on Monday. You all liked Vaxxed from Cover Up to Carnage, was it? Oh, hopefully I didn't watch that up. I've just had a mind blank. But anyway, we played that video last Monday. You guys loved it, and it just really shows that what's happening now with the COVID casualties is not the first time that Big Pharma, the CDC, World Health Organization, all the big players have colluded to cover up the fact that some vaccines are just not safe and effective. So they've been a huge inspiration to the tour that we've got coming up. And as Calvin said, if you would like to get behind us, and we can only do this with your help, please go and check out counterspinmedia.com. Without further ado, Calvin,
let's go here.
Well, welcome to the show, Elana. It's so great to catch up with you. And as we've mentioned, you are now the culmination of a series, and we're really lucky and grateful to have you with us.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just starting a book tour, and I'm trying to pull together probably 15 talks in the next month. I can hardly believe I'm going to do this. I must be crazy. But it's with a PowerPoint in order to show people how the environment has been weaponized and is being utilized by synthetic biology that is going on now, as we see with the inoculations. And it's to promote my newest book that I spent 2.5 years writing, named Geoengineered Transhumanism, How the Environment Has Been Weaponized by Chemicals, Electromagnetism, and Nanotechnology for Synthetic Biology. Big title, big book, 690 pages, 60 color illustrations to finally add this to the discussion of what has happened to us in the last 2 years, so people can understand how big this plan is that the global elites, whatever you want to call them, have now ushered in after many years, I would say 100 years of planning and getting technology ready to be able to succeed in global governance. But that global governance comes with a very large penalty in my estimation, which is that the human being is to be changed. And it has to do with the secret space program that the Nazis introduced in the paperclip days of the end of World War II, introduced into the United States and Canada, England, etc. New Zealand and Australia were definitely involved because all 5 of those English-speaking nations used to be called Echelon and are now called Five Eyes. So a very deep political agenda lies in the secret space program, which many of these technocrats and their scientists believe is the future, that we are going into space and we need a different human being to be able to do that. And it has to be that we are genetically altered. So this is the opening volley, what we've been experiencing for 2 years, of the transhuman hybrid that is now being created right in front of our eyes, but with many lies, much subterfuge, and Ukrainian wars, etc., distractions, so that they can continue their program. And that's why the book that I just wrote is so important, is that it's the only book, to my knowledge, that actually really connects all the dots in the secret space program, the present governance on planet Earth, the movement of medicine toward precision medicine, toward digital biology, away from molecular biology. And, the 2 books I wrote before in 2014 and 2018 were sort of prepped for this, but I didn't look at them as that. I was really trying to define how our atmosphere and the surface of the Earth had been taken over by military industrial intelligence complex technologies. And no one had really said boo about it. No one had resisted it. No one had really inquired. In the United States, we have the problem of the National Security Act. So if you bring anything up that's classified, it'll go out of the room and you'll never hear what happened to it. So it's very unfortunate that we fell under that secrecy so early in the game of this secret space program, governance, world government takeover. But now we are waking up. I'm very excited to, after many decades of activism, I'm a 60s person. I've been an activist since the 60s. I have not given up, and I have gone deeper and deeper into the issues that hold us and grip us so that we would be free as human beings. And in this book, I want people to look at it as a workbook so that they can just look up various chapters, various places in the book where they're looking at, well, what is 5G? What is mRNA? What are the delivery systems of nanotechnology coming from the sky, from the GMO foods, from the vaccine programs? This is how big it is. And so we've had activists for decades now who are pursuing this line of necessity and that line of necessity and this and that. But we have not had a connective way of looking at them as working all together and therefore intentionally loosed upon us, layer by layer by layer, by those who seek to have what's called by the military full spectrum dominance over planet Earth. And that's the level this is really at. And I just happen to have the kind of mind that loves research and knows how to do it and can see the connectors of very large spans of time and space in order to understand what is really being intended for us as a species on our beloved planet Earth. That's basically what I set forth.
That's awesome. That's it's because, as you said, it's been compartmentalized on the level of the elites, and then of course, like you say, people have researched on our side all different aspects of it. But to have you bring it all kind of encapsulated into one a book is really amazing. Now, just for people who are really new to this information, you mentioned, the deep space program and the military. Can you just elaborate a little bit on DARPA and Silicon Valley and how they play their part and how they're, and I know it's another big question, but can you just touch on those for the audience?
Well, certainly for the secret space program, you are looking at communications is a very large part of it. If I could just, DARPA is always involved in getting things up and running that are weaponized. That's what it does. And then once it's up, then another agency or corporation will take over the running of it. At this point, I would say that back when the people began to notice in the 90s the chemtrails in the sky would have been the first sign we had of this aspect of the secret space program. Of course, those jets flying so high in the stratosphere, 35 to 42,000 feet would be the commercial jets. And then for military jets, they were flying even higher. They were releasing what people assumed were condensation trails, but those are not what they were. If you were a chemist and you knew how chemical signatures work of various elements from the periodic table, you would have been able to see that the pattern of the discharge from the jets was not contrails. And that was when a scientist I worked with and who's still a good friend, Clifford Carnicom, began to collect detritus condensation after the jets had flown over northern New Mexico here in the States. And he began to analyze what was in that condensation. And then he had his HEPA filter. He was picking up a lot of dust. And so that was in the mid-90s. And already the HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska, a huge phased array antenna farm was already operant, and zapping, focusing the beams of all this energy and zapping the ionosphere high above us. And the ionosphere is very, very important to everything that's going on now, because it's from the ionosphere that we get the ions that we need in order to turn our entire atmosphere into a battery or an antenna, either one or both. And so the atmosphere you and I are breathing from now is completely different from what it was 50 years ago. If there's anyone who thinks that our military industrial intelligence complex cares at all about human health, they really need to do more study of the history of how it works, especially here in the United States. I know this is true, that we are used as we have been used experimentally for many decades. I mean, this could go back 100 years of using uninformed citizens with giving no consent for a variety of chemical, electromagnetic, genetic experiments. And now it's sort of, it's so accepted that somehow we've kind of missed the boat on having some way to control this. But since the secret space program has been number one. In the economy, we never hear about it. We think NASA is about the only thing we hear, but this is really the very first thing that is on the minds of all the global elite, is this needing to take control, full charge over the planet Earth, so that then when we have these moments in space, I mean, now they're already planning the farming of minerals on Mars and the moon, etc. We need to understand that that science, that kind of level of science, which is beyond us, has to do with humanity too, and that anything that we're told about the military, and preparing for enemies and having the right weapons for warfare, all of this has to do with the people now, and that's really what we sort of dropped the ball, as we say in the States, on that, because this has been going on since the end of World War II, but I would say that since the 90s, when they really had this technology they needed, finally, control over the ionosphere. Very big deal, very big deal. And they did that through HAARP. That's when the communications that your original question was referring to really took off, because wireless communication needs a lot of particulates in the atmosphere in order to work well. And it needs low moisture, not high moisture. So a lot of what's been coming down and we've been breathing is aluminum. And already we see that as you call it, aluminium, I love the way you pronounce it. The aluminium is in a nanoparticle size, and it clogs the lungs. It weakens the heart. It brings on Alzheimer's disease. It has to do with autism soaring beyond belief in small children. This aluminium is intended to dry the atmosphere for all of the communications needs. And when we think communications, of course, we're thinking fast downloads, we're thinking cell phone connectivity, we're thinking in terms of ourselves. But when the military industrial complex is thinking about it, they're thinking about it in terms of military operations, or as they call them, dual use. Dual use meaning they can do things on a military level and they can do things on a civilian level. Now it's absolutely full on in the atmosphere. And as long as you don't get sick and have respiratory issues or have some of these other things I named, you probably won't care. And I think that's a real mistake, because now there's even graphene oxide being dumped on us from up in the stratosphere. And that's, of course, what's in the inoculations. And once it gets into the body and warms up, starts ending up in wired systems that will eventually take the place of our nervous system. Because what is being created, particularly through the vaccine or the inoculation that's going on now, is a transhuman model of the human being. And that transhuman model will be a cyborg to one degree or another. It will be able to be plugged in directly to an AI system. And much of this is already underway. And that's why I spent the 2.5 years for the clarion call of this book, so that people would understand how all these things fit together. It's as though the line between military operations and civilian operations has been erased. and we haven't been told about it. So now we have corporations like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, my two favorites to hate. And they themselves own the patents for many of the things that are now coming online. And that means that we're pretty much corporate run, you see. And what is a corporation concerned with? Well, profit and the bottom line. Who are the people who run the corporations? Not the CEOs. The CEO is sort of the errand boy of the board of directors of the corporation, and all the corporations are now interlocked. So everything's gotten kind of ahead of us. As long as they keep telling us in the media that it's democratic and that, you know, the small community really is really how things are most important, we tend not to think about all the rest of how that line has been erased between the military and civilian, and how we now need to really understand what they are using us for and exploiting our children and grandchildren. To me, it's sort of like someone is yelling fire in the theater. And if that happens on a very local level, you hear it and you know that you'd better get on the ball. But if it's on a global level, that's very hard to get hold of for human beings, because we're primarily individuals, and we think in terms of local decisions and how personally we are affected. And now I guess what I'm asking people to do is to really develop more of a public mind and to think of the future of humanity that is now definitely imperiled. And there are many people who, through the singularity and the transhumanism movements, seek to create a human being who is a cyborg, that can be run by artificial intelligence systems, because they inside them have this technology that is already programmed to work with cyber systems like AI. So that's the key. Is when you ask me that question, yeah, okay, DARPA, but I think the important part is the electromagnetics, yes, and the chemistry, yes, and probably most of all, which I have not yet talked about, is the nanotechnology. That is the newcomer and the real means by which this whole nightmare for us and a dream of technocrats and global elites will be able to be brought to fruition if we do not take hold of our lives and begin to look at our technology completely differently.
So basically, we've got certain nefarious parasites that want to kill us, and those of us who survive will be uploaded into synthetic bodies or consciousness to basically do the bidding of a centralized AI command.
Right. And as far as the kill us, if I could bring in a spiritual concept here, I tend not to think that they are that interested in killing us. I mean, in culling us, yes. Culling the population, always. That's what warfare has done for many years. That's what starvation has done, sanctions against nations. But for killing us, that would be the easiest thing in the world. Their problem is, if you subscribe at all to the idea of reincarnation, is that they know these people will come back. And that's not going to solve the Earth problem at all. If reincarnation really is true, which I certainly believe it is and have had experiences of it since I was a child, then when you kill people, they may just turn around and be back. So how can you get rid of people on a planet that has too many incarnating souls all the time? I think the way I too would do it would be to change the genetics of the human body, so that that incarnating soul coming back would not really be a good match for that genetically altered body. You see what I mean? Say it's a cyborg type of body, and it's already plugged into an AI system. And that AI system is going to last for thousands of years, not just a few hundred years, not just a decade or so. It'll last for thousands of years. Then when they come to planet Earth to incarnate, how could they do that? I don't think they could, certainly not a natural soul. So this is a very big thing going on. It goes all the way into spiritual realms, and where we all argue about God, and we argue about Christianity and Buddhism and all the things that we all have come for a different purpose of meaning. But when you get down to the idea of the elimination of human beings, I think that is the main problem the elites have. And they are very aware, in my opinion, that reincarnation is a fact. And why we don't have that concept in the West, whereas every other nation has that concept entrenched in their history and how they live their lives. I really don't know. But I think that's why I don't talk about that this is all about wiping out humanity. I really don't think that's it. I think we're much more valuable as lab rats. And they have various, this latest inoculation program is just the first volley. They have other things in mind that's why they need to make sure that they've left the door open on, you'll get sick. You'll still get sick, and you'll have to come to us for another vaccine and another booster, another vaccine, another booster. Is that they have a lot in mind for what they're going to keep putting in us as software and hardware. And this is just the beginning. This mRNA has just delivered the first round, but there will be another round. And at the same time, of course, when we get back to the geoengineering part of this, the macro part of the micro, well, they're dumping stuff that correlates and it corresponds with what's in the inoculations. So that those of us who choose to not be inoculated, we're all breathing in graphene oxide now. It's not just being injected. We're breathing it in. Those who are injected, however, probably have the greater dose, but still, we're all in this together. And that's the key idea, is why this false division being formed between the inoculated and non-inoculated. It is true that the human element is going to be different in the inoculated, especially if they go for 3 times, than it is in the non-inoculated. That is true. But we are all still struggling for our humanity, to whatever degree we have that humanity. And I think that's one of the blessings of this time, is that we all now have to really rethink what we think being human means. Is it just having a head and a torso and arms and legs? I don't think so. I think there are a lot of human beings walking around who probably aren't that human anymore. So now we need to really decide, okay, I'm a human being. To what degree am I going to commit myself to remaining a human being? And that's a really new question, I think.
Yeah, really, really big question. And there's a couple of ways we could take this. I think maybe can we just, because here in New Zealand, of course, we've just recently had scientists actually looking under the microscope and finding the nanoparticulates in this Pfizer jab that's been rolled out here. Of course, in Spain, you've got the Fifth Column group, and you've got scientists popping up around the world that are proving what, people like yourself and us here at Counterspin have known for a long, long time. But for those new people coming to this information, how do you actually describe this nano tech, and how is it actually interfacing with what you're talking about, the chemicals that are coming down from the sky, and then obviously then you've got the fluoride in the water, you've got also the attack on the pineal gland, and like you say, the 5G, because what they're saying is now that the heat from the 5G actually has an effect on these nanoparticulates in the body.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let me take the first part of it. I did see that New Zealand scientist look through his microscope. And basically what he's looking at, I went through the whole thing. I'd already seen La Quinta Columna films. I'd seen at least, I love La Quinta Columna. I've watched probably a dozen films a dozen times. And what he was seeing in New Zealand was graphene oxide. He saw that, the blobby looking things that are only 1 atom thick. And he saw a lot of the hardware that's being put in for the communications system that I'm talking about how in order to run this new hybrid transhuman, they need to be plugged in, and they're being plugged in through the hardware being injected into them on a nanoscale. So that the little right angled things, the little square things in there shouldn't be there, and yet the vaccine itself for many decades has been used as a delivery system. So I can only imagine what has happened to the generations who have been vaccinated from day one. I can only imagine what they have been inoculated with to control their development already. You see, we think this is just starting. This is not just starting. We have generations, we have approximately 3 generations alive right now who have all been inoculated with the vaccine schedule of their childhood and all the, I had children and I didn't vaccinate and I had to lie all those years. I would find clever ways to lie my way around the requirements of schools and daycares and everywhere. So those who were inoculated, which was the majority, what has happened to them? Because these vaccines always piggyback experimental things. So I can only imagine. That's a book that will have to be written someday as someone with greater biological knowledge than mine looks under their microscope and starts laying out how this has worked on generations. Now we have a new generation. I think the latest CDC, the Center for Disease Control here in the States, their numbers for the number of vaccines that a child is expected to have without having the law at their door is 49. So what's going to go in all that? Well, this is a delivery system, and it has been fortunate up to now that it required consent to do that. But now, as we see, they are attempting to take away our consent and force us, do force vaccine, because this experiment, which most people have trouble understanding, is about that hardware that these researchers and doctors are finding under their microscopes. So here's how it would work. 5G and 6G, this is the name of the game. It's these are the 2 levels of electromagnetics that have been slotted to control the nanotech that is in us, either the nanotech we're breathing from what's being dropped from the sky, or the nanotech in the GMO foods that we eat. I don't know if do you have GMOs in New Zealand or, yes. So last I checked, 34 nations have made it a felony to even bring GMO foods, genetically modified organism foods, into their nations. You can go to prison for that. And certainly no one is allowed to grow GMO foods in these countries, Russia being one. Russia is entirely organic now. What does Russia foresee that the United States and other Five Eyes nations don't foresee? Well, I think somebody has awakened to the fact that the GMO foods, first of all, the seed itself is not natural. It's not of nature. It's a terminator seed, as we used to call it when it first became obvious that Monsanto was creating terminator seed and shipping it all over the world. So when you're eating GMO foods, you are eating foods that have genetically modified organisms in it, and that would include nanotechnology. So that is a delivery system. All the foods that are now considered junk food, need I say, are all filled with nanotechnology. The water system, yes, the water table definitely has aluminum oxide in it. It has everything that has fallen down from the sky. But if you go deep enough to artesian wells, it is possible that this is definitely still a better water source, and very deep wells. So you see, I don't need to prove to you that our environment has been weaponized. I mean, it's entirely obvious. And for many people, they've thought for years that it's a profit motive. But it's not just a profit motive. The motive is much, much greater, and it has to do with the future that these very wealthy, influential people really feel that they can bring about on the planet if they work very subtly and are willing to lie and are willing to kill in large swaths if they need to, however they want to do it. But for the vaccination, the recent vaccinated people, the inoculated, if you take a 5G system, the 5G is really good. It's mainly the millimeter waves that are so excellent for this work. You can put up small cells, which are everywhere. You can't see them, a lot of them. You can see some of them. But we keep being told that it hasn't rolled out for this people and that people and there and there. Well, that's all nonsense. It's all rolled out now. And they need the 6G with it in order to penetrate to the depth they need to control our cells, our tissues, our muscles, our brain. And so if someone has had the jabs that have come out in the last 2 years, they are definitely being tracked and traced. And I think you've probably seen that, where someone can walk into a restaurant and the TV, which has a Bluetooth connection, suddenly ignites, it goes off. And now that person can be tracked and traced by hackers to see exactly what batch number this person was vaccinated with, exactly how many times they've been vaccinated, their address, their bank account, everything about them. So that's one aspect. But meanwhile, that connectivity that this person is now sadly subject to via their cell phone. I don't own a cell phone. It's a weapon system. I don't know why people own them, nor do I own a TV. Weapon system. I mean, this is what I mean. When you have dual use technology and you're surrounded by it, you're going to have to look very carefully at the technologies. And you don't have to be a scientist to do that. And I don't know about you, but I don't have much confidence in experts anymore. I feel like I really need to look and myself and use my good intelligence in order to see what I think of it. So the 5G, 6G system has this person, this inoculated person in their sights. They can make symptoms appear because every symptom you have has a frequency, and no two frequencies are alike for these symptoms. If you are around one of these people who's been inoculated, and you may experience the symptoms and call it, what do we call it? When you're picking up what someone else is broadcasting?
The shedding?
Shedding. The shedding is due to the frequency of the symptoms that you are now picking up. You're not getting the disease. There really is no disease to get, to tell you the truth. You are getting symptoms because they all have a different frequency. So this person basically is now more of a broadcaster than the non-vaccinated. That's all this means. And they are plugged in to systems whose algorithms are seeking out those who have been inoculated in order to track and trace all of what happens to them physically and around them from the inoculation. This is an experiment, a grand experiment of how many people, I don't know, a billion have been vaccinated was the last I heard. So then say they want to move you to another level of symptoms. Well, they've already in the inoculation put into you virus or bacteria treated in such a way that they now simulate various diseases that can be recalled. Ebola, scarlet fever. Now we hear about AIDS, but not the HIV AIDS, but AIDS, of course. And so they want to make sure that all the vaxxed people have an outbreak for a new level beyond Omicron. Well, all they do is those wonderful satellites up there that are all 5G, 6G, and all the cell towers and the cell phones that are completely controlled all the time, whether you turn it off or not. All they do is then they loose this frequency to awaken, sort of like Lazarus, to awaken this set of symptoms that have been called this or that, and now you're ready to roll again, and you're going to go fill the coffers of the hospitals and the doctors and the research labs and all the rest. You see how it works. So for those who don't want to feed into that system, not being inoculated is a good beginning, definitely a good beginning, but it isn't enough because you're still being hit from the air. The aerosol delivery system is very popular because, again, we're operating on a level of nanotechnology where we can't see 1 billionth of a meter for a nano. And we can only learn that, yes, the jet fuel is filled with nanotech. Yes, there seem to be alternative systems on these jets that are releasing very carefully chosen chemicals. Who runs the chemical industry in this world? Oh, big pharma. Not just for the medicines you're taking or the antidepressants or the jabs, they're supplying all of that as well. So, in order to counter these things, do you see why people don't write me anymore and ask me, Elana, how can we stop this? I used to get that for the first 5 or 6 years of this. No, we can't stop it, but we can protect ourselves. And the protection that we need to have begins with examining our electromagnetic situation. How are you living? What kind of toys do you have around that have this, the electromagnetic thing going on, that are involved in the Internet of Things? What can't you do without? Couldn't you do without that cell phone? I'm telling you, that is probably the most serious weapon system you own. Can you do without your TV? Which, go ahead and unplug it. The microphones and the cameras in that, watching you and listening to everything in your home, are on without it. They don't need it. They don't need the electricity. So, who has done this to us? It's mainly, I choose to believe, it's mainly out of the military-industrial intelligence complex experimenting with these things to see how well they work. But it is also more than that, isn't it? We're getting into the level of evil that is quite extraordinary. And to simply say there is no evil is simply to say there is no evil, because there is evil. And St. Paul in the New Testament calls it powers and principalities. Our problem is powers and principalities, not flesh and blood. Well, I know a lot of people hate Bill Gates and Mr. Fauci and all the rest, but that really doesn't do much. It really is that this electromagnetic, chemical, nanotech stew that we're stewing in now seems to have its own, I'm hesitant to use the word, but some sort of consciousness that keeps it going. And maybe it, even when it gets into us, borrows our consciousness and therefore robs us of what we could be using to protect ourselves. Because I do think in the end that consciousness is the answer to all of this, that we simply need to stay awake. First of all, we need to wake up. And I'm sure you two are awake. And then we need to figure out what in our lives is making us go to sleep when we really should be staying awake. If that includes drugs, alcohol, movies, I don't know what. How do you run your life? How do you discipline yourself to stand for high principles of being human? Or have you sunk to some of the low human appetites and desires and that sort of thing? You see what I mean? I'm coming at morality from a very different angle here.
In that case, I've gone subterranean myself. I'm like a little mole. I'm underground.
Well, what do you mean underground?
Oh, when you talk
you mean literally underground?
No. When you were just saying how low people sunk, I'm just going subterranean. But I liken the whole thing to a chess game. Two particular entities at odds with each other, playing with us all as pawns. Unfortunately for them, there's a few of us who are self-aware pawns, and we're stuffing up the game. So we're the ones focused on to be subjugated in order for their game to go smoothly. That's the way I've been looking at it for a while.
They know those. They know that. They know that. So you know that they're taking measures for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like we've said in a previous show, when you go to the Naval Office of Naval Intelligence, when they're running experiments on people, they've got the psychology side of things sussed, they've got the medical side of things sussed. Everything you could possibly think of doing has been thought of and counted. And so it's almost like mankind over a number of, it's like it's been reset mankind has been reset before. And I think it's been done a number of times where false histories, false thoughts, false everything have been implanted, where we've sort of lost our core being. We've detached, it's like detached retina. It has to be sewn back on. Somehow we have to be reconnected to who we once or who we really are in our essence rather than just in our biological form.
That's right. And we can't wait for someone else to do that for us. You know, the so-called savior idea. No, we have to find our way ourselves. And yet, how do you do that? It's not a medicine. It's not a food. It's what I call the inner life. And if I were to say anything about the West, and when I say the West, I'm talking about all of, you know what I'm talking about,
yeah.
The West, capital W. It is the poverty-stricken inner life of the typical Western person. And by inner life, I don't mean, are you a Catholic? Are you a Buddhist? Are you a this or that? I mean a certain quality inside our consciousness. First of all, we have our conscience. And if we obey our conscience, we're getting a pretty good start to keeping a real inner life going. Because without the inner life, we will be taken by storm by this technology. The next book I'm going to write is on targeting, because I have huge files on it, and I am in touch with dozens of targeted individuals. So I know what the electromagnetics is going to be used for on a grand scale, either broadcast from satellite or jet planes or rockets or whatever, but also just the technology we have around us can all be used. So that inner life, you've brought up exactly right. If all the attempts to undermine what is human, what always answers it is if you've ever had the good fortune to meet someone who seems to be extremely developed as a human being, what would be the qualities? Well, very aware, not necessarily a high IQ, very aware, alert, compassionate, but
Almost
able to be firm. All the qualities that we have admired in. I used to be a professional storyteller, so I know many myths, legends, and fairy tales in which there are qualities of the heroic or the non-heroic that you immediately know what the drama is in these stories, because they're just they're stories, and it's a story. But when you get to your life, this is kind of messy, and it's kind of big, and it's kind of vague in some ways. And so it's much harder to see what our inner life gives to our incarnation, to our living on the earth, this time, this now, until we no longer live and we die and we leave, and the envelope is slipped under some magical door and we enter some other level of consciousness. Mm. But here we have to have that inner life, or we're going to be suffering much more greatly than certainly I'm suffering, because I have a very big inner life. So I know that is really, I mean, when I say that, people must think I'm half daft, because I'm saying that in facing this multiple level challenge of technology in this era of the machine, the beginning of the future of humanity, in having to grapple with machines, that it's actually quite wonderful, because it's going to challenge all of my skills and all of my consciousness by which I can look into things and understand what I'm seeing. I may have to study, I may have to do this or that, but now it's on me. And it isn't a matter of waiting for the experts and waiting for the really smart people to tell me what to do and how to do it. It's really about me and my decisions in my daily life. And that's freedom. That's freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. We often say on the show, we're not here to tell you what you don't already know. We're just here to help you remember what you forgot.
Yes.
Here in New Zealand, we have a really, like the US, we have a weapon called media, another extension of Operation Mockingbird, where they just continuously bombard people with the same messaging. Everything's in lockstep with other parasitical leeches around the world who are trying to inflict their type of creation on us, where they want to smash the world and reorder it in their own way of being. Now, we also have everything in our face, but people still refuse to see it. On the Auckland City Council, one of our biggest ones, these are the people who tell you black is white and white is black. Let's centralize everything. It'll be much more streamlined, much cheaper. And of course, it blows budgets. It's always out of whack, and you lose everything anyway. You're paying more for less services. We have the fourth industrial revolution and proudness on their part, telling you all the good things that are going to come for it. And of course, it links directly to the World Economic Forum's website. And they always paint everything like it's going to be rosy, but history tells us it never is. Yet, why do humans continue to believe the bullshit?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might have a good answer for that one.
I do have a good answer. I'll send you that too, because I have this little clip that talks about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. I mean, that's what happens when, people will talk to me as long as I don't talk about anything that is problematical for them and against what they think is true. And at the moment that happens, it's almost like I see this sort of deer in the headlights look in their eyes. And they're now miles away from a conversation with me. I think the cognitive dissonance is the hardest thing for people, especially, and I would say especially people who are accustomed to media and visual media in particular, like TV, where they're accustomed to hearing what they think is news, what they think is truth, what they think is important people. And that's why we go into an sort of an alpha state that then gets very, defensive. I mean, I'm sure you have that happen when you bring something up to someone, and that's not at all what they're thinking. And just think of how most of the people we talk to are extremely conditioned and even programmed by the media. And they're completely unaware of it. They really think they're free. They really think that they've done the research. They've done the research. I love that one. And so, there's no further discussion need happen now, because discussion is simply a matter of either an aggressor and a defender, or you're just putting you're massaging each other with a sort of sleepiness and a dreaminess in the name of having a conversation. So it is the problem, and yet I'm always happy at the talks I give. Maybe 3 or 4 people actually had an awakening of some sort out of 30 or 40 people. I mean, that's how it is. It's kind of like I feel sometimes like I'm like one of those traveling ministers in the old West of the United States, where I'm the rainmaker. I'm Burt Lancaster in the movie The Rainmaker. And I go and I make, a couple people happy. I wake a couple of people up. It isn't something that is particularly successful on a grand scale or won't make me wealthy, but it is what needs to be done, is an individual coming out, just like you're 2 individuals coming out and bringing on other individuals to have a conversation that people can listen in on and compare and contrast in their own psyches, how they're doing and what they're doing. And they could just turn it off, and be done with it. Or they can take the ride and see if they can learn something while they're here on planet Earth that would change the direction they're going in. mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you're bringing it the whole issue to the heart of the matter, to the crux of the matter, in that what they're doing with the technology at the moment, transhumanism, this whole thing, as you say, is a consciousness battle, I suppose. So we're seeing technology and spirituality, which is what you're bringing together. They're right at that meeting point. And I guess for me, I really wanted to bring a couple of Steiner quotes in here, because I know, he's obviously played an important role in your life also. And he actually said that I have told you that the spirits of darkness are going to inspire their human hosts in whom they will be dwelling to find a vaccine that will drive all inclination towards spirituality out of people's souls when they are still very young.
And he's not talking about the airy-fairy spirituality to, like, let's go hug a tree and, throw bloody flowers around.
Right.
Talking about real connectiveness.
And the second one is in the future, we will eliminate the soul with medicine. Under the pretext of a healthy point of view, there will be a vaccine by which the human body will be treated as soon as possible directly at birth, so that the human being cannot develop the thought of the existence of soul and spirit.
Very serious. Very serious.
Exactly what's happening, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like they're trying to create, and of course, movies in Hollywood play a big part in the messaging to make it normal in the subconscious of your mind. So when you arrive at what at point they start to implement it, it's already like par of course for you. So it's like creating the Borg hive mind.
Exactly, the hive mind, and I think that consciousness is the answer to this. It isn't a matter of meditating. And like you were saying, it's not an airy-fairy kind of thing at all. Of course, nobody's ever accused Rudolf Steiner of being airy-fairy. He's hard work to study, hard work to read. If you look at it, that the spirituality has to do, and your conscious life and your inner life have to do with the quality of your thinking throughout the day, the quality of sitting down to eat and take food in, which is, a very spiritual act, to talk on the phone with someone, to which sites you go to and spend time at, what you allow to come in through your visual, through your auditory, through your mouth, it's that kind of attention I'm talking about when I talk about an inner life, is the quality of your, Rudolf Steiner said that there is no school of initiation now other than the school of real life. And this is it. This is the school. I am engaged in the lessons of real life here in this daily life I live, whatever my daily life is. And that, just to begin there, and then look at your technology, and then look at your habits, and how you are standing for your humanity. This is the beginning of really getting into the right position that we need to be in to handle the coming age of machines, because this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. And so, of course, we all think of the pre-programming in the Matrix, right? In the Matrix movies. And we see that fight of Neo against the machines, and how I love that scene. I actually really love that scene where he's standing out in the realm of the machines. He still has the blindfold on because he can't see. He's blind, but he can see the inner light. He can see the inner light that is just radiating all around him. Now, if we are able to put the machine into the proper context as a servant of humanity and not a master, that's the key. But to get there, we have to get ourselves into a certain position by which we are operating from our true humanity. And then we can make those decisions. Through writing this whole huge book, I constantly had as a mantra, sort of, the phrase, the thinking we used to create the problem cannot be the thinking we use to solve the problem. Very, very important, and much food for thought there, that we need a new type of thinking. And that's why, as Hannah said, I'm bringing the spiritual more and more in. I used to be just Miss Technology, and lots of numbers and lots of this and that, because I was trying to attract the scientists. But now I realize, since I've heard the suicide rate of many youths, I've realized I need to talk about the spiritual aspect here, because of course the spiritual aspect is the solution, but in a certain way, not in a way of just meditating a lot and even praying a lot, even going to seminars of fabulous higher thinking. It's about how we live our lives in the most humdrum, daily routine ways, and the stories we tell ourselves about how to do that.
Yeah, in New Zealand, we have the same problem. We have youth checking out in big numbers. They're checking out.
I know.
In disarray.
It's everywhere.
The government's covering it up and calling it, what are they?
It's everywhere.
New label for
accidental deaths.
Accidental deaths.
They're putting it in there.
Someone decides to check it. That ain't an accident. That's because someone's deliberately created the environment for them to decide, stuff this, I'm out of here. And away they go. So I've often thought of the Earth, some people call it a hologram. It doesn't matter what it is, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned. This realm was once perfect to sustain us and allow our development, growth, our creative genius to be unlocked in our quest for who our source is, or whatever, going back to source. But it's like somewhere along the line, some little parasitical leech has hijacked that program. They've infused their own manipulated codes into it, and now we seem to be in a hamster wheel that we just can't get off. And for some reason, every time it looks like we've found a way to slow it down, to jump off and reassess things, bang, another disaster hits. Case in point, as you say, with all this, the whole medical field, the world is run by experts. How's that working out for us? That's why I've got no stock in experts, all these so-called people who have gone to university and then all of a sudden they're basically regurgitating the same rubbish that they were taught, and therefore everything's hunky-dory. Because no real development has ever come from anyone within the field. It's always on the outer rim that they create the greatest advances for us. So what's your take on the ultimate direction for them, and how we can change course? Because I know what's happening is here. It's in our face. It's here. It's now. We are locked into it. But there's a way, surely, to navigate to a place where we're sort of without, but within.
But I think I said that already, so I'm going to reiterate it in maybe a different way, because I know it's tempting to think in a collective way of humanity. We. As a historian, which is my trade, actually, I have noticed that all periods of history are pretty much, when they have something superior, something that really has to do with furthering real human evolution, and that has to include the masses, as they're called. That has to. Those periods are always led by a vanguard. It's not many people, several thousand people, maybe 5,000-7,000, maybe. I mean, really small. And that sort of moves forward because it has a certain quality and it has a certain momentum, because it is serving the good, the true, and the beautiful. It's serving those Greek ideals from any culture. It doesn't really matter. And then all the masses who are sort of sleepy and sort of dreamy, they're behind them. And they may like them for various reasons, or there may be an advantage into going that way that they're completely unconscious of. That's how history has always worked. So I concentrate on being worthy of being in that vanguard, and really paying attention to others in the vanguard. Example, I sometimes am highly criticized by some people I consider to be in this vanguard. And they obviously are maybe having some sort of ego trip, or maybe they take issue with the fact that I'm now turning spiritual and they don't like that. Whatever it is, I forgive them, because we all need each other who are in the vanguard. This person's talking about this and this person's talking about that. And we need all of it. We need all of it, not just Elana and how Elana looks at it. So if we really become true individuals and carry our load and live a life out of that inner life, that consciousness I'm talking about, that vanguard, you're protecting it, and you know you're in it. I mean, I wouldn't be on this show if you weren't in it. And that vanguard is how we drag everybody behind with us. Now, as far as the enemy and those bad guys out there, I don't want to give them even 5 minutes. I mean, I have a very hard time reading articles about Mr. Fauci, because I've already got his number.
Yeah.
I know that I could memorize a few more facts and a few more bad things he's done and that sort of thing, but I've got that one covered. I got other things. It's that positive moving forward, just dragging everybody behind with you. That's what I have great confidence in. Absolutely.
And I think, again, that's where it ties in with what you said before about, everybody doing their inner work. Firstly, stopping those things, like the addictions that you're talking about, whether it's addiction to your phone or drugs and alcohol, or the junk food, all that,
or your cell phone.
Yep.
You're killing me here. You're killing me here. What a list I've got to go through.
So we stop all of that, and then you go into like what you're talking about, getting in touch with the inner world, developing your inner self, making sure that you're morally worthy, like you say, of being part of the vanguard, right? And then you learn what your role is to play in the vanguard. I mean, you're obviously a very prolific author and, a deep thinker, and not everyone's going to be able to do what you do, and not everyone's going to be able to do what we do, but we can all play our part in the creation of this new earth, and create these sanctuaries where 5G isn't we're not flooded with all these 5G technologies or the new technologies that the enemy is trying to bring in. So there's that side of it.
But there's one thing you forgot, and we've got to put it in there, and that's to examine your electromagnetics. You're not going to be able to have the moral strength of living that inner life if you are being eaten alive by the electromagnetics around you. And that is the right word, eaten alive. Yeah. It is very impossible. We are of nature. These bodies we have are of Mother Nature, and the electromagnetics are antithetical. And I have other quotes by Rudolf Steiner in which he says this, that electricity makes your thinking about half what it could be, because if you are inundated by it. So that's the key to, just before you're talking about the moral life, you're going to have to really look at that, because it's like it really is living with the enemy that we love, because we can read at night. We have electric lights, and we have these lovely computers, and we have, all sorts of wonderful things, but there's a big price for them. And we need to really examine our relationship with them, so they don't run us, but they serve us.
That's right.
I've actually got, just before you go, I've got a friend, Richard, who lives down the line. He's actually turned his main room and his office area into like Faraday cages within the house. And at nighttime, he turns off his Wi-Fi, and basically when he's in there, he is disconnected from all that hammering of the waves, electromagnetic, this, that, one thing, the other. So, and
well, I'd like to say something.
Sleep.
Could you say something to him? I'd be very interested in what he thinks. If we're breathing in graphene oxide, and then there are the people being inoculated with the graphene oxide, then the magnetic element in us is very strong, much stronger than it normally is. So in a Faraday cage, as I understand it, it can turn against you if you have too much, if microwaves are used and you have something in your body which responds to the microwave, such as nanotechnology, such as the graphene oxide, which is a nanotechnology. Can it be that the Faraday cage then would turn just the opposite and not be protective, but actually be the assault area? I would love to know what he thinks.
Yeah, I'll ask him, because he's actually out of the main population centers that get hammered by the trails and the aerial dumps.
But remember, he doesn't know yet that it's inside of us that that this can happen. And now, of course, there's the satellites where he can't escape those satellites. But I admit I'm confused about the Faraday cage, because I've heard pro and con from people who have them. So I would love to know his thoughts.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is that good?
I've got one more question before we go, Elana, because when you're in these, when you're down all these fascinating rabbit holes, you come to all these thoughts, and my end line of thinking has come, in regards to those elites who aren't really elite, and the powers that shouldn't be. So, because you mentioned it earlier, they may have a hesitancy to kind of cull the whole population because of reincarnation, right? This is exactly the thought that I have got to with them. So there are calls around the world, especially now with the last 2 years and what's happened with this bioweapon they've rolled out and this whole thing getting exposed and the media covering it up and the politicians pushing it, that these people ought to face Nuremberg 2.0. And a lot of people say, well, some sort of execution is the only way. That's what some believe. But my question is always, if we do live in a reincarnating system, and they also live in a body, and that's housing a spirit and a soul, and yes, they may have turned to the dark side, but if we simply take away their bodies, are they too simply going to find a way to reincarnate and come back as a spiritual entity? Like, how do we actually basically send these spiritual entities back to the parts of the universe where they came from? I know it's another big question, but
no, it's a great question. Great question that I simply don't have an answer to. I mean, I'm all for justice on the earth to the degree that we can have justice. And that would be certainly with the Nuremberg 2.0, so-called. What is in these people? As I've said, I don't know that they're all really still human. But on the other hand, how are you going to parse that out? I mean, that gets into a real can of worms. So I think we need to always go according to the law of the land if it is not crooked, and those people need to pay for what they've done. But as far as them reincarnating and coming right back, I don't have any power over that. What gives me strength to not hate people, because hate is a real burden. It's a real burden, and I don't want it. I'm in for the good stuff here. Is that Paul said we're dealing with powers and principalities. Now that I kind of understand, and so by removing Tony Fauci from his position of power and having him face some sort of tribunal would be how I'd see it happening at all. Is absolutely, I'm all for it. And whatever the penalty of law is, I'm all for it, because there is no doubt in my mind that this person knows what he has done. As far as all the bureaucrats and the yes men and all of the those people. I honestly don't think many of them realize the depth to which they have sunk. And in their case, I would still have to go with the letter of the law as it stands, and is not bent and twisted into vengeance and bloodthirst over to take that. Now, that's not how I function. I attempt to function out of high principles, because that is the truly human in my mind. And we have had truly human eras, very brief as they were, because here, it being a school, we are constantly barraged by those who are involved in power, who are involved in what Rudolf Steiner calls subnature, which is below nature and is completely amoral or immoral. And we have this fight always when we come to planet Earth to learn to hold to the good, no matter what it costs us. And you know, I want to be on that team. That's the team I'm on. And I'm always inviting people to be on that team with me. It may be hard at points, but what isn't hard here sometimes? I mean, that's how it is on planet Earth. But I want to defend the good, the true, and the beautiful. Yes.
I'm on that wagon like by a fingernail. I'm just still holding on.
You're getting there.
Baby steps.
Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, Elana, and we could really, you know, talk for hours and hours and hours. So hopefully we've given people a lot of food for thought there in terms of, you know, it's a much bigger picture than just the technological upgrade. Have you got any final thoughts or anything? I mean, we are just wishing you all the best for your the rest of your tour in America. If there's anybody out there, you can go and see Elana in Oregon and in California and Arizona. If you go to elanafreeland.com, you can find all her dates there, and of course her book. We're going to be purchasing that. So have you got any last parting words?
Just that if people could want to order the book, to remember that on evil Amazon, it's only a black and white edition. And I would much prefer that you go to a tiny bookseller here in the United States called the Rudolf Steiner Bookstore in Seattle, Washington, where you can, for $15 more, order the color version and see all the 60 illustrations in color. I think you would be pleased to have that instead.
Always pays to support the little guy, because the corporate guys are the reason we're in the crap we're in.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. I'm glad we finally made it.
We did. It was a bit of an epic journey getting here, but such is life. Life's a journey, as they say, and it's not the destination, it's the journey. I personally would rather know where the hell I'm going to end up before I even decide to take the bloody thing, you know?
Right, exactly.
So very much appreciated, Elana, and we will hope to have you on again after your next book, maybe, as well.
All right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, not ready to think about that yet. All right. Bless your work. Thank you so much for doing this.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay, cheerio.